and welcome to 9 to 42, the podcast from the team at the Guitar Show UK. Join us for interviews, updates and chat with artists, influencers and those that manufacture the gear that we love. Hello and welcome to 9 to 42, which is the podcast from the guys at the Guitar Show UK. And L Fromage, Le Grand Fromage, wasn't L, was it? It was Le. Le Grand Fromage, same letters, wrong way round. Jace Hunt, podcaster extraordinaire, is on screen. Jace, how are you?
I'm all right, thank you. It's a slightly bizarre intro, but yes, I'm fine. Good.
Good. Well, it's a slightly bizarre everything, isn't it? Because it's 5 to 2 on a wet Wednesday.
Yeah.
Which I thought was the thing that you do where you lick your finger and stick it in somebody's ear, but that's a wet willy, isn't it? On a wet Wednesday, and we're topping and tailing, aren't we? We're a topping and a tailing.
Yeah, we haven't done this for quite a few episodes, have we?
No. Which means the one thing we need to do before we even start is remind you all about how grateful we are to our sponsors, Focusrite.
Yes, we are.
They're just lovely, aren't they?
They are. I've been chatting to Luke on and off for a week or so now because we did the live podcast for the Not the Guitar Show.
Not the Guitar Show.
And Focusrite very kindly gave 2 competition prizes. I've informed one of the winners this morning, so they're very happy that they've won. Focusrite are great. Love them.
They have been fab. And to be fair, and we're not just saying this, because, most people in the music industry are fab, but every time we speak to somebody who's connected with Focusrite, every time we speak to an artist who's connected with Focusrite, they are genuinely blown away by Focusrite as a bunch of people, as you will attest if you've listened to the episode with Misha.
Absolutely. And I have to say, as employers, having been down to Focusrite's offices several times, it's a bit like walking into a mini Google.
Is it?
Yeah, it's brilliant.
Wow. I ought to get down at some point. I've never been.
Come down with me next time I go down.
All right, we'll do that. Anyway, back to the reason why we're topping and tailing. We're topping and tailing because you had one of those moments, didn't you?
I did. I've had a very weird lockdown that has been both devastating and absolutely amazing. So, as probably people will possibly know if they've listened to the Bruce Kulick episode, certainly when I was a teenager, I was a massive Kiss fan. Just huge. And today, even though I don't really listen to them very often anymore, I still know every single word of every single song. And then, so that was just before Christmas. Then just after Christmas, Joel McIver, for a previous podcaster, the editor of Bass Player magazine, phoned me up and asked me if I'd like to interview Gene Simmons. And that comes out this month in Bass Player magazine, which was a slightly surreal experience for having Gene Simmons phone me on a Friday night. And then off the back of that, I ended up on a press sort of like mailing list. And I just chanced my arm. Paul Stanley's got a new album coming out with a new band called Soul Station. And I just sent an email and said, can I interview him for 942? And they said yes, which is just mental. It wasn't quite as shortcut as that. There was lots of backwards and forwards, lots of, can you provide stats? Who are your listeners? When will it go out? And, usual stuff. But yeah, and then I got an email that said, are you available at 5:00 on Monday? And I'm not going to say no to being available at 5:00 on Monday. So I said yes. Anyway, it came through, and it was actually 6:10. He's doing back-to-back Zoom interviews. If you look at his social media, he's had like about 8 hours a day of back-to-back interviews. But I got this form through that said, you've got 10 minutes. You've got like 6:10 until 6:20. That's it. You've only got 10 minutes, and don't talk about Kiss. He spent 50 years talking about Kiss. He's here to talk about Soul Station, his new project. And actually, Although the interview with him that we've got is only about just over 15 minutes long, I actually got almost 20 minutes with him, which was twice as long as I should have done. And we did briefly talk about Kiss. So yeah, it was really good. It was very odd having probably the reason why I play guitar effectively in my house via a TV screen. Yeah. It was really weird.
I mean, I kind of know a little bit about what you're saying with doing the podcast with Steve Hogarth, because obviously I am, Marillion are your Kiss, if you know if you know what I mean, and I'm exactly the same. And I don't listen to the band as much as I used to, but the fact is that no band will ever replace Marillion. That's the constant. That's the one that just sits there. And it is weird when you're in that situation, and you because what you go back to is how many of those albums did you buy on day of release? How many of those tours did you go to? How many times would you have literally given your right arm just to have a conversation with somebody that you end up now, starting to have a relationship with, and you don't know. This might be the start of a beautiful friendship.
Yeah, it's weird because I love lots and lots of bands, but I can remember where I was and what I was doing the first time I heard Kiss, and I can't do that with any other band. I was watching Entertainment USA with the noted paedophile Jonathan King presenting. And it was Kiss on the Creatures
One
of the
of a
Night.
group of noted paedophiles.
Yeah. And they were on the Creatures of the Night tour in the States, and he was interviewing them backstage at some, random venue. I'm sure you could find it on YouTube these days. And just being utterly transfixed of the live show. And bearing in mind, this is 1982, I'm watching it on a portable TV that's black and white with a 10-inch screen or something. And whatever night that was, on the Saturday I went out and I bought would it have been? I think it was the I Love It Loud single. And that was it, really. I was off and running. So yeah, it was really weird. It was really weird when he popped on the screen and just sort of appeared. And he went, and I know you can see this, obviously nobody else can. And he went, "Hey, is that a framed picture of Keith Richards behind you?" And I kind of moved so he could see the picture, and he was like, "Marshall amp." And I was like, yeah. He's like, "If I'd have known you were a guitarist, I'd have bought my 59 Burst in to show you." And that was just like the best start, really. Yeah. So then I have to explain that 1942 is it's a guitar show podcast. It's about guitars, and so we had a bit of a natter about that. But I hadn't pressed record at that point because I had to he'd got two handlers with him. So when the screen popped up, 3 images popped up. And I think they're there just to check that it's legit or whatever. And then as soon as we started the record and I asked if I could press record, then the two of them disappeared. And then we started talking. Surreal.
Well, we'll go straight in so you can have a listen. And like you say, there's about 15 minutes worth of which is fairly standard in these scenarios to get sort of that long. Because I guess 15 minutes worth of questions typed up for the page is probably about the length of most kind of articles for this kind of stuff.
Actually, I mean, I spoke to Gene. It was 20 minutes, and I think it ended up being 1,800 words.
Yeah, so that's going to be about right, isn't it? In terms of with a bit of backfill and what have you. So we'll play it, and then we'll a little regroup at the end. And not apologies, but I mean, obviously it's a slightly shorter episode this week, but then you don't get the opportunity to bring this kind of content and share this kind of content very often. So
genuine rock star.
Yes, yeah, absolutely. Been there, seen it, done it, rock star without a shadow of a.
Gene likes to remind everybody they've got more gold records than any other band in the history of gold records, and they've sold over 100 million albums and blah blah blah.
Yeah, not that he's feeling in any way, shape or form, inadequate or insecure. But no, let's dive in. Let's give it a listen, and we'll have a little regroup at the end. But I must admit, I am a bit jealous.
Because you were in a meeting. You could have come on, but you were in a meeting.
Yeah, I know. But it was, I think I'd have scared him. I don't know if it'd have. Hey, it's bad enough. There's the screen popping up. You know, you've done 8 hours of Zoom, and it pops up, and you end up with a brummie. I mean, it's even worse if you get. I mean, I'd have just chewed his ear about Brexit. You know, so it was probably better I wasn't there.
I have to say though, actually, Dorothy's PR. Lovely. Sent through or arranged for me to have the album in advance. It comes out next week, I think, 19th of March, I think. And I was genuinely really surprised just how good, particularly the songs that he'd written. What was really weird was, though, that I could really tell, apart from one of them, I could really tell which ones he'd written. But that's a very long time of listening to Kiss, I think.
Yes, that's a little Anaraki nerdy, isn't it?
Yeah, sorry.
Yeah, it's okay. Well, we'll crack on, and the two of you will be chatting in a second, and we'll regroup at the end. Paul Stanley, welcome to 9 to 42. It's lovely to have you here.
It's a pleasure to be there with somebody who also appreciates good musical instruments.
So we should talk about the new album. It comes out on March the 19th, I believe. But I was fortunate enough to get a copy of it today. I've been listening to it all day. Congratulations. I think what astounded me the most was how the original songs fit in so well to the rest of them.
I take a lot of pride and satisfaction in people saying to me it's seamless. And I really think that the classic songs are such great roots that there's no need for new and improved songs. There's just, there was a desire for new songs, but of the same bloodline. So I love that many people say, gee, it's seamless. It's hard to tell what's what. So I'm very appreciative of that.
Yeah, I was, because when I got the files through, I didn't know, obviously I knew a lot of the songs like Temptations and so on, but I had to look up IOI. I was like, oh, blimey, that's actually one of yours. Whereas Save Me, I knew instantly that was one of your songs. I don't know how. It's probably 40 years of listening to Kiss, to be honest. But it just, but yeah, I was really pleased. So, how did that come about? Has this been a kind of like a COVID recording project?
No, Soul Station started about 5 years ago.
Yeah,
and I'm somebody who's very, very rooted in that music. As much as people may tend to associate me with hard rock or being influenced by British rock, you know, the greats. I actually saw Otis Redding when I was in my teens. I saw Solomon Burke, the Temptations. My music was very much rooted in that too. So the foundation of what I do is pretty diverse. And perhaps because my public presentation has been one aspect, people are surprised. But in fact, I've always sung this. I've just sung it at home.
Yeah, I was listening to it, and your voice is it's a different voice that you're using now. But in some ways, I was listening to it, and it kind of reminded me in parts of the voice that was used on Unmasked or something. So it's not something that you've never done before. It just feels very different from the vast majority of the back catalogue. Did you?
Yeah. Well, it's certainly a different intensity. It's dialed down, and it's drawing on different influences. But voices and writing that have influenced me as much as anything else. So again, it's not new to me, although singing these songs is almost like threading a needle. It's it calls for a certain precision, but not precision at the expense of passion.
Yeah.
I'd rather it not be perfect and have emotion than beat it to death.
Yeah. So you mentioned sort of the writing process. How was that different this time? Because I get the impression that some of these songs weren't written on a guitar. I don't know. Do you play the piano or?
That's a very, very astute point. All those great songs that we've grown to love were pretty much written on piano. So I had to think piano, although I was playing guitar.
Right. Okay.
So the chords and the sequences, the changes were more piano based, and then the voicings were changed to piano voicing. So I was writing with piano in mind because of those songs, and it was very natural for me because whether we were doing shows, Soul Station was doing shows or recording or just socializing, we spent a lot of time together, and we love hanging out and spending time together. So when I wrote songs, it was only natural that they would sound like those songs.
Yeah.
It was, just looking at music from that perspective. That's all.
Oh, right. Okay. So are you playing the guitar on the album?
I play a few rhythm parts, and I actually play a couple of licks on Tracks of My Tears, but I wanted to leave the guitar playing to Raphael, to our guitar player, and be the singer and think of myself in that capacity. But when we would be cutting tracks, sometimes the feel was in the rhythm. So I would play sometimes the acoustic rhythm.
Yeah.
When we were cutting basic tracks, just to show where the accents were.
Okay, so talking of guitars, you mentioned before we started recording your 59 burst. It's kind of I've got a Greco copy here that I had finished. To look like Keith's Exile burst. How good are 59s really? I've never had the chance to play one.
Well, speaking with, I'm sure, one of both our heroes, one night I was talking with Jimmy Page about vintage guitars and saying, there is a blanket myth that's kind of associated that they're all magical guitars, and they really weren't.
Yeah.
There were some stunners, amazing sounding magical guitars. But when I could and was collecting vintage guitars, I turned down bursts. I turned down 58s and 59s because they just weren't that good. But there is something magical. But I think you do yourself a disservice if you think you can only get that out of the heralded and magical mythical guitars, because I've played guitars that were new, that were amazing. And I have to say that relicking, if done properly, can also enhance that. Relicking shouldn't make your guitar look like you dragged it behind a truck.
No.
Vintage guitars, there are some that are magical and stunning. But I also believe that it's possible you may not have that same mythical persona added to it, but if you get great old seasoned wood in the hands of the right luthier, you can turn out, guitars that are on par.
Yeah.
I believe with those guitars.
Do you find it freeing not having guitar engine neck when you're performing with Soul Station? Is that a very different physical experience?
Yes, very much so. I loved Steve Marriott.
Yeah, who doesn't?
And, seeing Humble Pie was a game changer for me, because here was this lead singer with this Epiphone, or this Les Paul around his neck, just preaching the gospel, and so I very much identified with that. But I've always also really identified with lead singers, whether it's Sam Cooke or Rod Stewart, so the idea of putting the guitar down actually was freeing in a way, because it all I focus on is singing. I perform. That's just in my blood. Do I stand still? I don't know how to stand still.
When I was recording some vocals and I couldn't get it at all, and the engineer came in and put my guitar back around my neck, and he said, "You stand differently when you got a guitar on," and that, first take, vocals done. It's weird how it kind of like moves your body completely, doesn't it?
Yeah, I think you have a different stance. I think it's more your muscles flex, and you're more in attack mode when you have that guitar around your neck.
So, talking of guitars, I did notice on some of your social media posts you've got a new Ibanez vintage.
Yeah, I am. I have my the PS10s, which I've had since the 70s, and those are just fabulous guitars. I mean, having nothing to do with me per se, they were really based as far as the diameter of the neck and the pitch and everything was really based on some of my old Gibsons. So it really is very much, it's a classic guitar. I mean, if you play it and you don't know what it is, or you don't look at it, you could think it's a lot of other guitars. So that being said, I just felt like, gee, wouldn't it be great to have something that's a little bit more classic looking in terms of going more towards the Les Paul look. Yeah. So I had them build a prototype, and it's great. It feels different. I do think that what your guitar looks like when you're playing it can affect how you approach it.
I completely agree.
So I do remember, interestingly enough, I remember stepping on stage during the 70s for sound checks in the UK, and I had a 58 Burst with me, and I just felt like I had come off of Olympus. I had the weapon of the gods. So I do believe that which guitar you play and what you play it for really does affect you. And it's not just the sonics, and it's not just the feel of it, but it's the look of it.
Oh, completely. Moving on, because I know I haven't got much time. I noticed that Evan's got a single out this week as well. I saw Evan supporting you at the National Indoor Arena in Birmingham a couple of years ago. And I was really disappointed that when we went back to the merch stand, all the CDs had sold out. It must be quite a proud dad sort of moment when your son's out there.
He's an amazing young man in that he has no sense of entitlement. Yes, I had him do those shows as an opportunity. They worked hard, and I thought it would be invaluable. But Evan has no sense of being owed anything. And in fact, until he went to university, he was delivering food for a delicatessen, for a deli. So he works daily. He's a phenomenal guitar player, and yet he has moved away from what he was initially doing. I said to him, if you're purely going to play the blues, I think there's only room for Joe Bonamassa, and then everybody else is kind of relegated to playing clubs or something.
Yeah.
You know, I mean, Joe is just, there's Joe, and then there's the other guys. So, and I said, you know, if you don't sing, you're always going to be looking for a singer. And if you don't have songs, you'll always be looking for the song. So he's really developed tremendously as an all-around, you know, musician. And he's certainly not Frank Sinatra Jr. You know, he's not out there being me all over again.
No, not at all. So I suppose that was it. You know, how's lockdown treated you? Are you okay? I see you're out on your bike a couple of times a week and so on. I mean, I think California, I'm assuming you're in California at the moment. It's been sort of a very different lockdown, I think, to the UK's, which has been quite hard. I mean, we're allowed out of the house for an hour a day at the moment.
Well, certainly the weather is better out here.
Yes.
But, you know, we've had times where the rise in infection rates has made it necessary to shut things down. So, you know, that's been an issue. It's hard to complain when millions of people have died, you know, and people have lost their loved ones. So for me to say I'm inconvenienced, well, so be it. You know, I'm more concerned with making sure that I do my part to keep other people safe.
Yeah, absolutely.
And we're back. And that was Jace chatting to Paul Stanley. And you might have noticed it was rather an abrupt ending. Now, you can view this a couple of ways. You can think this is Jace's skill as an interviewer and podcaster and his ability to record audio. Or actually, you can have the truth, which is that the Zoom audio went a bit wobbly and we lost the last answer. But you asked him one more question, didn't you?
I did, yeah. I asked him if we were likely to see Soul Station in the UK, and he said, well, he didn't say anything. He just put his fingers up to the screen, which doesn't help on a podcast, to say, you know, fingers crossed, yes. And then his two handlers had kind of come back onto the screen, which was obviously telling me that, you know, I've basically had double the time I was supposed to, and it was time to end it, which is, you know, fair enough. I was told I'd got no more than 10 minutes, and I ended up with, I think, 18 and a half minutes by the time I'd hit stop on the recording. So I was quite pleased.
But I guess anything to do with the new band will have to work in within Kiss, because they're still trying to finish their, you know, last time around tour, aren't they?
Their last hurrah around the world, the end of the road tour, which I think still got about 150 dates to go. They're playing in Australia towards the end of this year, but I can't imagine they're going to be doing anything between now and then.
No.
So yeah, I mean, you know, they're not young anymore, and running around with all that stuff on them, you know, those outfits is hard work. You know, they're all kind of 60s pushing 70, so this can't go on forever. It just physically can't go on forever. But actually, we did, you know, we said in the interview that how liberated he felt not playing the guitar and just being the singer. And I think, you know, if I'd have had more time, I'd have asked him, you know, was he liberating to not have to be wearing spandex and 7-inch heels as well? Because that can't be easy when you're 69, 70, whatever he is.
No. Must be hell on the ankles.
Oh, he's had, I think he's had both hips replaced, which doesn't surprise me at all. And surgery on his shoulder many times. You know, I don't think anybody can ever deny that they don't give it their all when they're on stage.
Yeah. The only one of all of them, I think, that probably is somewhat miraculous for his age is Jagger.
Yeah,
because he's a force of nature. You know, I think in terms of being his age, I think he's just like in ridiculous shape, but I think probably everybody else has probably had 2 or 3 new bits added.
Yeah, I mean, I've seen Jagger several times on stage, and I always thought he was the kind of weak link in the Stones, until I saw them live. And then you realise just how phenomenal it is. And then that skill of holding an audience in the palm of your hand, something that Paul Stanley has as well, is something that's just learnt over time, I think. And, once you've been doing it for a very long time, it must become a whole lot easier. But Jagger was so charismatic and, never stopped moving. And I know we can all watch those silent Mick Jagger sort of like Facebook clips of him, and he looks utterly ridiculous when there's no music behind him. But actually, when you go and see them, it's incredible.
I was watching a couple of recent live clips of Gimme Shelter, and only this week actually, and was absolutely blown away with that. Must be a favourite of the band now, but I think it's because of the backing band. It's because of Lisa Fisher, who just her vocals on that are just astonishing beyond astonishing. I mean, it's as much of her song. I mean, there's loads of stuff in the comments that were just saying, Lisa and her backing band. But I mean, to a certain extent, in that track, that's what it is. She is just unbelievable, and it's nice that they've carried on developing live because of the band they've got. It's really moved some of the material on.
I don't want bands to go and play the CD or what would have been the record back then live. I want them to do something different with it. Otherwise, I'll just stay home and listen to the CD.
Listen to the CD. Yeah, that's fair. Anyway, thanks for listening. It's been what a treat. What a treat to get Paul Stanley on the podcast.
It was a massive treat. Slightly surreal. And, this wouldn't have happened without COVID. So, it's not all bad, is it?
No, it's not all bad at all. And next time we're going to be speaking to Daryl Hyatt.
We are. I've known Daryl. I wouldn't say know it, but we met initially. We worked it out, and we think it was about 14 years ago at the NEC when I was running Music Live. He was there demoing the PV Rockingham guitar that he'd had a hand in designing with Ken, who was the managing director of PV UK. And PV's stand used to be right outside my office at the NEC. And so the noise of sort of like 10,000 people a day in that hall was just phenomenal. But actually, when Daryl started to play, it was so nice and so different. And I've been trying to get him to the guitar show as well, so hopefully we might do that for the next one. And I have dates. I have dates.
Yeah, I saw that. I
spoke to the venue yesterday. So I said, "How are you?" And they were like, "Bored. How are you?" "Yeah, bored." They've started taking bookings from the summer onwards in a sort of socially distanced capacity, but we're going to wait and see what it goes. But we've got the 26th and the 27th of Feb 2022 penciled in, so it actually feels like there's an end date now and something to work towards. So really looking forward to that. Oh, and blessed Simon Bartholomew emailed me the other day as well, and he said, "Do you still want me to perform at the guitar show?" So yes, I do.
I'll tell you what, we need a word with him, because if he's still not managed to get that bloody solo album out after having a year in lockdown, then it's never coming out. So, it needs to be out by now, Simon. If you're listening, Simon, it should be out by now. You've had bloody 9 months of doing nothing, so no excuses. So we ought to check in and see if he's made any progress. And finally, I suppose, actually, just before we finally wrap, thanks to everybody that joined us for the live session that we did. Yeah. As part of Not the Guitar Show, and originally we thought we might try and get some of that audio out, but I don't know if it'll work necessarily. But I think what we will do is we'll follow up with a couple of the people who dropped in and do podcasts with them.
Yeah, we'll talk to Laura again.
Yeah,
she was lovely. Our listeners, Ian and Craig in Canada.
Yep.
Yeah. Oh, Craig, your t-shirt's on the way. Finally.
Well, actually, it'd be quite nice. I think we should see if Ian's up for an episode, because I thought Ian was really, really, really funny, really interesting, really wired into that scene as well. north of the border. So I think it'd be a real nice episode to get more involved in that, because it's a very particular music scene up there, and it's produced a lot of good bands. There's always been a lot of really good bands come out of, have come out around sort of Glasgow, Edinburgh, sort of, and that part of the world. And it is a particular scene in its own right. So it'd be nice to get Ian's take on it, because I bet he knows a lot of the people who are sort of in and around what's going on in that part of the world.
Yes, and he very kindly offered to put pedal steel on some of my tracks. So
yes. So we need to have him on. Yeah, we'll do that as well. Right, in which case, I'll see you next time.
See ya. Bye-bye.
Thanks for listening to 9 to 42, the podcast from the team at the Guitar Show UK. If you've enjoyed the show, then please remember to hit the subscribe button and share with other like-minded souls. For more information about 9 to 42, please follow us on Facebook, Twitter or Instagram at the Guitar Show UK. This has been an A Short Stories production.